A police officer walks up to your window during a routine traffic stop. "Good evening. Is this your car?" Most drivers hear that question and answer instantly. "Yeah, of course." Or worse, "Well, it belongs to my cousin, but I drive it all the time." And in that moment, the entire stop can change. Because that question is not always small talk. Sometimes it is a fishing question. Sometimes it is about ownership. Sometimes it is about consent. And sometimes the way you answer gives the officer a reason to keep digging. So what do you do? What should you say? Can refusing to answer make things worse? And why do lawyers pay very close attention to that one simple question? Here's what most drivers do not understand. Every video here could save you from a serious mistake one day. Subscribe now so you don't miss what could protect you. Then share this video and drop your opinion below. I want to hear what you think. Traffic stops are already stressful. Your adrenaline spikes. You want the encounter over quickly. So people start talking. They explain. They ramble. They volunteer information nobody asked for. That is where problems begin. One unnecessary sentence can lead to more questions. More questions can lead to inconsistent answers. And inconsistent answers can lead to suspicion, extended detention, requests to search the vehicle, or even criminal charges if the officer believes you are lying. That does not mean every officer is trying to trap you, but it does mean you need to understand how these encounters work legally. By the end of this video, you will understand what officers may be looking for when they ask, "Is this your car?" What information you may legally have to provide, what you should avoid saying, and the exact phrases that can help protect your rights without escalating the stop. First, understand why the officer is asking. A lot of drivers assume the officer already knows who owns the vehicle because they ran the plate. Sometimes they do, but that doesn't mean the question is pointless. The officer may be checking whether your answer matches the registration information. They may be trying to determine whether you have authority over the vehicle. They may be watching your body language. Or they may be building reasonable suspicion for a search or further investigation. Here's the mistake people make. They think they need to fill silence. Officer says, "Is this your car?" Driver says, "Yeah, it's mine. Well, technically it's my girlfriend's, but I use it because my license got suspended before, but I'm allowed to drive now." That is how ordinary stops suddenly become investigations. Notice what happened there. The officer asked one question. The driver volunteered 3 extra facts. Now the officer is thinking about license status, prior violations, insurance issues, and possible inconsistencies. Instead, keep answers short and accurate. If it is your car, say, "Yes, officer." If it is not your car but you have permission to drive it, say, "No, officer, I have permission to use it." That's it. Short, calm, direct. No extra storytelling. No nervous over-explaining. The second thing drivers need to understand is the difference between identification requirements and voluntary conversation. In many states, during a lawful traffic stop, the driver is generally required to provide license, registration, and proof of insurance. But that does not automatically mean you must answer every investigative question beyond that. That distinction matters, because officers often continue the conversation after collecting documents. Where are you coming from? Whose bag is that? Why are you nervous? Do you have anything illegal in the car? Now listen carefully. Being polite does not require surrendering your rights. You can stay respectful while limiting unnecessary conversation. A calm response may sound like this: "Officer, I would prefer not to answer questions." That phrase matters because it avoids confrontation. You're not arguing, you're not insulting the officer, you're simply declining voluntary questioning. And that becomes especially important if the officer starts asking for consent to search the vehicle. This is where many drivers accidentally give away protections they didn't know they had. Officer says, "You don't mind if I take a quick look inside, right?" People panic when they hear that. They think saying no automatically makes them look guilty. But legally, refusing consent is not the same as admitting guilt. If the officer already has lawful grounds to search, they may proceed regardless of consent, depending on the circumstances. But if they don't have legal justification, your consent can be the thing that creates access they otherwise wouldn't have had. That's why the wording matters. Instead of arguing, say calmly, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." That sentence is powerful because it's clear and non-aggressive. You're not physically resisting, you're not interfering, you're simply refusing permission. And every word matters. I do not consent. Not, I don't think so. Not, why. Not, you can search if you want. Clear language prevents confusion later. Now, here's another trap drivers fall into. They try to debate the officer on the roadside. That almost never helps. This is not the place to prove constitutional law knowledge. Even if you believe the stop is unlawful, roadside arguments can escalate tension fast. People start pointing fingers, voices rise, movements become aggressive, and suddenly the encounter becomes dangerous. The safer approach is different. Comply with lawful commands. Keep your hands visible. Don't make sudden movements. Tell the officer before reaching for documents, and verbally protect your rights without turning the stop into a confrontation. For example, I am not resisting, but I do not consent. That phrase can matter if officers continue actions over your objection. It communicates non-violence while preserving your position legally. Another important phrase is this: am I free to go, or am I being detained? A lot of drivers never ask this question. Instead, they stay talking indefinitely while officers continue fishing for information. That question forces legal clarity. If the stop is over, you may be free to leave. If you are being detained, the officer is acknowledging continued investigation. Either way, the conversation becomes more defined. And if the questioning becomes serious, remember this phrase: I exercise my right to remain silent. I want to speak to a lawyer. Notice the structure. You're invoking silence clearly, then requesting counsel clearly. People often fail because they stay half talking after they say they want a lawyer. They keep explaining, keep defending themselves, keep volunteering details. That weakens the protection. Once you invoke those rights, stop talking about the incident. Now let's talk about tone, because tone changes everything. You can say the correct legal phrase in the worst possible way. Sarcasm, aggression, sudden movements, interrupting constantly. All of that increases risk during a stop. Officers are trained to watch behavior closely, and nervous or confrontational behavior can escalate suspicion fast. Your goal is not to win the roadside encounter. Your goal is to get through it safely while protecting your rights. That means calm voice, slow movements, short answers. No insults, no sudden reaching, no physically interfering with officers, and absolutely no lying. Some people think clever lies will help them avoid trouble. That can backfire badly. False statements can create independent legal problems depending on the situation and jurisdiction. If you don't want to answer, it's often safer to respectfully decline rather than invent stories. And remember this important legal reality: laws vary by state. Court rulings differ. The legality of searches, detentions, questioning, and identification requirements can depend heavily on the facts of the encounter. This video is educational information, not personal legal advice, but understanding these basic principles can dramatically change how a traffic stop unfolds. Because most roadside problems don't start with screaming or dramatic arrests. They start with ordinary people talking too much during ordinary questions, including this one: is this your car? So here's the safest framework to remember. Stay calm, keep your hands visible, comply with lawful commands, provide required documents, don't consent to searches, don't volunteer unnecessary information, ask if you are free to go, and if the situation becomes serious, clearly invoke your right to remain silent and request a lawyer. Because sometimes the smartest thing you can say during a traffic stop is far less than you think. And in the next video, we're breaking down another question officers ask all the time that most drivers completely misunderstand. Do you know why I pulled you over?